Welcome back to Let's Play Saga Valhalla, where we play Assassins Creed Valhalla and talk about Viking stuff. Okay, so we are in England. We have captured this area from the Saxon that had overtaken it after the Sons of Ragnar had left from this area to move on. And this is now our village.
Not a bad place, Eivor. Not at all. Can I help you with anything?
Sigurd wants your forge up and running as soon as possible. For that, we need supplies and riches.
Ah, you mean to go a Viking then? Good, good. How I miss those days. Ransacking and pillaging. Blade singing and shield splintering.
I would ask you to join us, but you are the only blacksmith we have. We cannot afford your loss.
Oh, it's no bother. Better I forge axes than swing them. My place is here, not pulling on the oar of a river horse. Though you do remind me, I found a map among the bandits' rubbish, marked up with the locations of Saxon monk huts.
Yes. Bandits know as well as we do. Monasteries are full of riches and loot.
Take the map with you, and put it to better use than they did.
Alright, so here's an interesting point of old history. Number one, a blacksmith was probably one of the most important people that existed within a kingdom or a village. In turn, like if you had a bunch of blacksmiths, it wasn't that big of a deal, but if you only had a few, they were very, very, very important, because without them you couldn't repair your equipment, you couldn't repair your boats, you couldn't repair your weapons or make new ones. So they were very, very important. They were protected people. Now, during an invasion of any sort, a blacksmith, if he was agreeable, was usually about the only person that was just spared. Because if he would work for you, it was such a value that you would be willing to have an enemy person within your ranks to do this work. So, there's an interesting piece of history that like kings were important, queens were important, all of these people were important, but they weren't beyond death even if they were cooperative. Because they didn't actually hold any value to what an invading force needed. And so a blacksmith or a farrier, which is a type of blacksmith, they're someone who specifically takes care of horses, was important enough that they would be taken along, or that they would be included into the group. Now they may spend the night in chains until you knew they could be trusted. But a little piece of history that's interesting. Now, while we're talking about interesting pieces of history, I want to discuss something that bothers me tremendously. So, this episode, I was like, we just took over a camp that was held by the Sons of Ragnar. I thought it'd be nice to talk about Ragnar Lothbrok himself. Okay. So I am going to talk about him a little bit here in a little while. However, I do want to talk about sagas and what they are. And I want to talk about historians and how stupid they've gotten over the ages. So, normally when I tell stories on here, I like to back up these stories from the sagas with as much history as I possibly can. And when I say that, a saga is what is considered to be cultural history. There are elements of that story that are not true, and they are still accepted, at least by my people, as truth. Okay. The prime example of this is Beowulf. Beowulf was one of those stories that, at the end of the story, he died in the mouth of a dragon and while slaying the dragon. Beowulf didn't die that way. In reality, he died in his bed as an old man. But he led a life that was worthy of a better death. So the story was written with a better death in it. And that is called cultural history. And it is an existence of, we know that that's not how he actually died. However, we accept this as historical fact. And that's a really odd dichotomy within history. And when you start talking to historians, because the dragon, they want to assume that Beowulf never existed, or they want to assume that the entire story is untrue, when we know which parts of the story are untrue. Now, 5-6 years ago, I've read the history, the actual historical stuff about Ragnar. Back when the show Vikings came out, I thought it would be nice to read some of the actual history, because the creators of the show Vikings clearly stated in their show, we're picking Ragnar as our main character. We're going to bring Rollo into that, okay, to be his brother as a story device. We are going to cover way more history than either of these two men lived through, but we are going to do it between them and their children. So in reality, Rollo and Ragnar, they existed over 100 years apart in history. So the Viking show did cover a lot of Viking history.
My thanks!
And it used those two men to be able to cover more of it on a show that needed to follow specific characters. They came out and said that early on. I think second season, third season, somewhere around in there, there was an interview where he was like, "Oh yeah, no, these two guys didn't do everything that you're seeing in these stories. It is they are the story device, and so we're going to cover as much Viking history as we can with these two people, using them as our story device." Okay, that being said, let's move forward to the problem with historians. So 5-6 years ago, whenever Vikings came out, okay, I read a lot of this history of Ragnar. I read a lot of Rollo, and I knew a lot of Rollo before, and I knew a lot of Ragnar before, but I was like, you know what? They've already told me that these timelines aren't exact. I'd like to put into perspective what these men actually did. So I read a decent amount of the history. And I don't remember the dates, and I don't remember the things, but I had dates and things back then, and I wanted to share those dates and things with you today. So last night, I get on, and I'm like, all right, I want to talk about Ragnar tonight. I'm going to read a little bit of this history, get my dates straight again, because if you've listened to my Let's Play Saga Red Dead, you know that I talk about a lot of history over there as well, and sometimes dates just get mixed up. That's just the reality of it. A lot of numbers, a lot of dates, a lot of people. Last night, all I can find about Ragnar. Oh, well, he didn't exist. What do you mean he didn't exist? It's like, oh, well, he didn't exist, he didn't exist, he didn't exist. I was like, so the great heathen army, the sons of Ragnar, marched across England. Who was their daddy? Which is my first thought. So I'm like, do they think that didn't exist? So I go in, oh no, the sons of Ragnar, those people were real. The sons of Ragnar were real. The great heathen army, Ivar the Boneless, Bjorn Ironside, they were real people. But Ragnar wasn't a real person. And the excuse for this from one historian, a historian, mind you, was that there is no possible way Ragnar Lothbrok could have been at the raid at Lindisfarne, sacked Paris, and sacked Wessex and Mercia. That is the timeline of Vikings, the show. He said to do all those things that he would have had to have had a 73-year Viking career. Yeah. No duh. The creator from the show even said that he didn't do that he didn't do all those things. So did this historian watch Vikings and decide that that's what he would make his base assumptions on as to whether or not Ragnar was a real person? So, okay. You're a useless historian. Let's move on to the next one and the reasons why he doesn't think he's real. Next one. There are 3 separate sagas and other writings and stuff that tell the story of Ragnar. They were written in like the 11th, 12th, and 13th century by different various peoples. Okay, obviously they were written about 100 years apart. But by his recollection, the reason why Ragnar is not real is because there was so much time between these stories. As if people don't continue to write about great men or great women over time. So because the stories were written so far apart, his assumption is that Ragnar couldn't have been real. Now all of these men agree that the sons of Ragnar were real. But that his daddy wasn't. Their dad wasn't. So, moving forward, I will give you all as much historical, archaeological, and factual evidence as I can. But moving forward from this point, I will speak from the sagas first and the historians last. Because in my recollections, in my mind, at least at this point, the historians are the least credible source for this information. Which is sad. Because, like I said, back when the show Vikings happened, they had concrete evidence of a lot of the things that were from the saga. They had a lot of history. They had dates. They had times and place when Ragnar was in the Mediterranean, when he was in Paris, when he was in Wessex. Now, he was not at Lindisfarne. There's nothing anywhere that writes that he was in Lindisfarne. That was for the show Vikings. But they had dates, they had times, they had, like, all of these things existed. And now, for whatever reason, one reason or another, Ragnar didn't exist, but his children did. So that's fun. In either case,
my count. I have no need to count my kids.
we will start with the beginning of the story of Ragnar, at least where he got his name, Lothbrok, which means hairy breeches. And there was a pet. It was a pet snake. Okay, that a fellow king had for his daughter. He bought this snake, and it grew to an ungodly proportion, and it was meant to guard his daughter. And it was guarding her too well. Someone needed to kill this snake, and it was so big that everyone was afraid of it. Now, in reality, this may have been a python or something of that nature that was brought over from somewhere else. However, Ragnar took some skins and he boiled them in pitch and hardened them out and created these pants
What's wrong with
and
you?
shirt that were stout, strong materials so
What's
that he could
the
fight
meaning
this
of
snake
this?
without being bitten. He went in and he slew the snake. And this was a very interesting
Pull
story
up
about
here.
how he got his name, Ragnar Lothbrok, which means hairy breeches, and it stuck. It stuck with him for the rest of his life. And that is how he actually he got
Back
his
so
first
soon.
wife. She was a young
And with
princess,
good
and she
news, I
died
hope.
very early. She was
I think
she
we have all we
had
need.
an illness. And this is a short story, but this is the beginning of the story of Ragnar, and I will tell more of it over time. I know I had to go on a little bit of a rant, but I just wanted you all to know, because normally I try to back up everything that I say with at least some amount of history and historical dating and things of that nature, but this isn't the first time I've seen the
This
history
is
of the Viking
wonderful,
Age and the
Eivor.
history
A
of the
forge
Norse
bigger and hotter than my
under
old
attack
forge back in
by the
Thornburg.
historians, and for some
Come
reason,
visit me anytime. For weapons and gear, there is no man better than me.
I will, Gunnar. Have no doubt.
for some reason,
And what can I do for you on
they
this?
have decided to attack it again, and I don't understand why. I don't know how you can be a historian and tell me that Ragnar did not exist, but his children did. That is among one of the dumbest things I have ever heard in my entire life. You can admit that cultural history says some of the things in
Fine
these
day.
stories didn't happen. Sure, that's acceptable. But you can't tell me the man didn't exist, but his children did. That makes you stupid.
I would like to see what you have in stock.
In either case, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'm sorry for going on the
can
rant.
get
But
you
yeah,
that
in the
one
future,
piece.
we're going to start with the sagas first, and then I can tell you what, at least as a Norse pagan, what is accepted as cultural history for me, if I can't find any historical proving of it, because I do like to point out historical history. It is one of the most fascinating things in the world to me, that a person's life led to them having a better story than they actually had, or that the people who wrote about them felt that they deserved more than they got.
All my pieces are good.
That's always
That
been fascinating
one's
to me.
very good.
It begs the question of what type of man was Ragnar? What type of great man was he that people felt he deserved more? What type of man was Beowulf that people believed he deserved more, and so they wrote that he had more? That's always been an incredible thing to me, and it makes me even more impressed with the people in the stories. That being said, as a Norse pagan, I always try to eliminate my beliefs from the history. And if I do talk about my beliefs, I talk about them in a way of, this is my opinion. So
Is that what you want?
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoy future episodes of this show. Maybe you guys can learn some history, maybe not. Maybe you just like hearing the stories, and that's fine too. So, in either case, I will see you all next week. I'm going to just let y'all finish out this episode. It's not much
Ready
left.
for battle.
And thank you so much for watching.
I have to go. See you soon.
Be well, my friend.
Saxons break their kingdoms into smaller territories.
Eivor, in here!
What will you keep in this room?
My finest weapon. For this room is yours. Here you may lay your head, hang your axe, or be alone with your thoughts. Do you like it?
It suits me well, but I would be just as happy lodging with the raiders on that wharf. I need no special treatment.
This is not special treatment. I want you here in the Longhouse, close at hand. I may be the Jarl of this clan, but you and I lead together, as ever. So get acquainted with your room, and when you're ready, meet me at the stables.
A letterbox for messages and requests. A bed better than many I've slept in, and a good place to recover. Not much, but it is mine.